Hello friend, welcome back to Acre Homestead. We are out in the garden. My dad and I just finished our first project ever out in the garden together. We just laid landscape fabric down on 14 of the 15 beds. We put fertilizer down first according to what the soil test that I did recommended. We put the recommended amount of fertilizer in each bed. We kind of mix that in. And then I'm doing something totally experimental this year. I've never done this before. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do this. We are putting landscape fabric down on the raised beds to reduce weeding, hopefully reduce the amount of seeds that will blow in because I've got hay fields all around me and seeds. Last summer, Josh and I would eat dinner up here and we would watch these plumes of seeds just float around all summer long. So I thought I would try something totally experimental. It's either brilliant or crazy. We laid landscape fabric down on 14 of the 19 beds. We didn't do the last 14 beds, last 5 beds because we ran out of the fertilizer. I didn't purchase enough, and I didn't quite purchase enough landscape fabric. So now what we're gonna do the second project ever. We are gonna start planting some seedlings. We have some store-bought seedlings. We're gonna do cold hardy crops. So we've got broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and then my onions just came in the mail. So we're going to plant, I think, over 500 onions. So I've never planted in landscape fabric before. My dad's never planted in landscape fabric before. So this is going to be a total experiment. Oh, we have potatoes too we could plant. So we might plant potatoes too. So the first thing we need to do is go get all this starts. So those are the ones we purchased. And then the rest of the ones we need to get are the ones that I started from seed myself and the onion plants that I bought. Here I have all the plants that I've started from seed, and they're out here hardening off a little bit. So Dad, this tray and this tray are the ones we're going to be planting out today. And then those two there, yep. And then this one too. These two little ones here. And I'll grab the onions. It's a little overwhelming being out here and now thinking about what to plant where. So before I have to spend brain cells doing that, we're going to open up this box. We are planting this year onion plants, not onion sets. So these are actual plants. So onions are biannuals. So you plant a seed in the ground, it grows and creates a plant, and then it will create an onion the first year. If you leave it in the ground over winter, it'll go dormant, and then the next year it'll grow back up, and it will grow a big flower, and it will create a flower. Now these just came in the mail, and some of them are kind of moldy and gross looking on the top. A lot of them are moldy and gross looking on the top. So I hope they're okay. I bought a lot. So these are Patterson, so these are a yellow storage onion. And they come in these bundles. So here are all of them, and maybe they'll be okay. Once I took them out of the rubber band, I think if we get these in the ground right away, they'll be fine. So I'm gonna get them all out. These are Patterson. I got a bunch of Patterson because these are storage onions, and I want to try to grow enough onions to store over winter. See if I have, yep, I have more Patterson, and see there's some mold on there. And the tops just don't look good. They're slimy. I don't know what to do because that is just a bunch of, that's just mold. So I'm not going to stress about it too much. I'm going to get these all out and I'm going to put them in piles of like with like. So these are the varieties we have. We have Patterson, which is a yellow storage onion. We have Red Wing, which is another storage onion. We have Yellow Spanish. This is a variety I've never grown before. Let's see if I can read it better on this one. It's called Highlander. And then this is another one I don't think I've grown before, Red Zeppelin. I guess I don't have any Walla Walla. I might have to get some Walla Walla because those have always done the best for me. I'm not sure how I missed that and didn't purchase any Walla Walla. And what I think I'm going to do is just go around and start putting things where I want them. And then my dad, one of us can start burning holes in the fabric, and then one of us can start planting. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is plant potatoes, because this is really easy. Potatoes are one of those crops that you plant and forget about it. So I'm putting this far away from the house as possible, because I won't have to harvest this until probably late July. We aren't gonna put landscape fabric where we're putting the potatoes. So I have 4 different varieties. I purchased these potatoes from the local nursery. I have russet potatoes, which I've never grown before. Kennebec, which I've never grown before as well. I got some seeds here. These we're not gonna plant today. We have some dark red. I got 2 bags of Nordic dark red. These are all determinate potatoes, which means I don't need to hill them. I'm gonna plant them about 12 inches deep. My dad's here, and then we will just let them grow until they're ready to harvest. So Dad, we're gonna put them 1 foot apart. I'm not going to cut the potatoes in half. I am just gonna put them right in the bed.
Growing potatoes is one of my favorite things to grow because they're super fun to harvest. My dad and I love harvesting potatoes. It's like a treasure hunt, and I look forward to it every single year. So we are going to just roughly eyeball the potatoes about 1 foot apart. My raised beds are 16 feet by 4 feet, and so we're gonna get about 60 potatoes per raised bed. And you might notice that these are whole potatoes that we are planting. I'm planting whole potatoes because I have the space for it. I could what is called chitting potatoes, where you cut the potato in half. You just make sure there's an eye on each section of potato. You cut it and then you let it air dry for a couple days and then you plant it. But when I purchased these seed potatoes, I went to my local nursery, and you can buy them in bulk. You can actually go through the potato bins and pick which potatoes you want. I have ordered potatoes online before where you can't do that, but because I had the option to pick exactly which potatoes I wanted, and I just paid per pound, I picked about a medium-sized potato so that I wouldn't have to go through that extra step of chitting the potatoes. I haven't done any scientific side-by-side comparison. I've done both, and I don't know if I can really tell a difference if I get a higher yield or a smaller yield by chitting the potatoes or not. I just personally chose to do it this way so that I didn't have to go through the extra step. Now, say I had ordered seed potatoes online and I got a bunch of really, really big seed potatoes and I wanted more plants than that, then maybe what I would do in that case is I would go through that step and cut them, let them air dry, and then plant them. But I didn't need to do that. I didn't look for the smallest seed potatoes when I was at the store to buy them, and I didn't look for the largest ones. I tried to look for kind of medium ones, hoping that would be a good amount of energy to grow the plant and produce a lot of potatoes. I'm not a potato expert grower, but I certainly do love growing potatoes every year. So I am, like I said, planting 1 potato about 1 foot apart. Now, I have grown potatoes in the roost out method. That's a very popular method of growing potatoes online, and I have done them in raised beds. For me, I have personally noticed that my potatoes get bigger in raised beds. They are harder to harvest, though, than in the roost out method. In the roost out method, you literally put a potato on the ground, you cover it in straw, and you let it grow. And they do produce potatoes. It's pretty incredible, but they don't produce very large potatoes, and I would rather grow more larger potatoes with a little bit more work of harvesting the potatoes. The cool thing about growing potatoes is you put them in the ground and you forget about them until time to harvest, unless early in the season you want some small, fresh, young potatoes.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put russet potatoes next because they're different than the other potatoes that I have, and that way I just know we've got our red potatoes, our russet potatoes, and then our Kennebec. And I am not planting any purple potatoes this year because I like growing them, they're fun, they're beautiful, but I don't really like eating them. So I garden because I like to eat, so I want to grow what I like to eat. So no purple potatoes this year. I'm just eyeballing 1 foot apart. For record keeping purposes, we have our Kennebec, our Russet, Nothing Yet, and our Nordic Red. So while my dad is planting the potatoes, I'm gonna go up there and figure out where we're gonna put all that stuff.
I am not a gardener that has a master plan going into the garden season. I maybe one day will become that type of gardener, but currently that is not me. So when I go out into the garden, I just kind of feel where I want to put things. And I kind of have rough ideas. So I knew that potatoes were one of the crops, like I said, you plant it and forget about it. So I didn't want that close to the house. I wanted that farther away because I wanted the things that are going to be closer to the house are going to be the things that I'm going to be looking at on a more regular basis. So I end up putting things like my peppers and tomatoes closer to the house. I am eventually going to end up putting my beans, green beans, closer to the house. And then I think in that one bed that we skipped, I might put some of my pumpkins, because again, that is one of those crops. You plant it and forget about it until it's time to harvest. There's really only one time in the season where you need to be harvesting pumpkins, or maybe 2 or 3, but it's not like a green bean where you're going to be going out there and harvesting it every day. So I just walked around my garden for a little bit and was trying to feel where I wanted to put my cold weather crops. So this is cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, and I think that's it that is in those. I do end up putting more stuff, which I'll share with you as it goes, but those are more of my cold weather crops. Now those things I want to get to a little bit more frequently, so I put them in the middle. So that is as scientific as my method gets when it comes to my garden planning, is mostly just trying to think of how often am I going to be needing to harvest it, how close then am I going to be putting it towards my house. So that's it. That's that.
This is what I've come up with. This is going to be our cauliflower. This is the store-bought cauliflower. This is the cauliflower I started from seed. This bed is going to be our cabbage bed. We've got our golden acre cabbage that I started. This is the golden acre cabbage I purchased. We have our red cabbage that I purchased and the red cabbage that I started from seed. So I am going to go ahead and just start planting, and then I'm going to put onions between each one of these plants. I don't know if that's a good idea, but that's what I'm going to do. Or maybe I don't do that. I don't know. We will see. It's already been a long day, and it feels good to be putting stuff in the ground now. So we've got our torch here. Hopefully we don't run out of propane. So I'm just going to start burning some holes. I'm going to do 3 across. There's one.
This landscape fabric was a decision that I kind of made last minute. I have never gardened with landscape fabric before, and I have seen people do it a lot online in in-ground garden beds. I've never seen anybody use landscape fabric in a raised bed before, and it randomly came to me that this is something I could do. I think I was in the shower or something, and I thought, oh, and be careful. Do you see how that's still burning? I can't believe I got that on camera. That is something that if you are going to be planting with landscape fabric, know that when you are done burning the hole, make sure that it has really done burning, because a couple of them got away from me and I didn't realize it until there was a massive hole in my landscape fabric. So right here, I am trying to figure out, man, did I make a big mistake? Because I covered 15 out of the 20 raised beds on this day with my dad, because it's super tedious cutting these holes. And it's because I didn't know how to use this blowtorch. And so I do end up figuring out a better way to use this blowtorch that makes it a lot easier. But it takes me, Josh ends up showing it to me like 2.5 weeks after I do this.
What I ended up doing in this bed, and it was not planned out really, I just eyeballed it. I did 12 holes by 3 holes, and this is a 16 by 4 foot bed. So that is how many plants we're going to be able to put in there. Dad, what's 12 times 3?
36.
36. Okay, my dad did the math real quick. He got that bed done, and now he's working on that bed, which is awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we can just pick these out of here. Oh, I want to make sure that that gets, I just tuck that in there like that.
Going back to this landscape fabric, like I said, I've never seen anyone use landscape fabric in a raised bed, and it came to me, and so I thought, you know what, I am the one who mostly manages this garden myself, and this is a pretty big garden, especially with having a new family, and so I thought, maybe this year I'm going to invest in it, and I'm going to see if I like it. I might not like it at all. It might be the worst idea I've ever had. It might be the best idea I've ever had, but only time will tell, and it can't hurt to try it 1 year. But like I said, Josh and I would sit and eat dinner while we were remodeling last summer before we moved in, and I would watch these seed clouds just billow over the valley, and I could just imagine all those seeds landing in my raised bed and taking over. So the first year I gardened on any scale was 3 years ago, and we did raised beds, and I had hardly any weeds. The second year, I had some weeds. The third year, I had a massive amount of weeds. So last year, the weeds were out of control, and it was overwhelming and extremely stressful for me. Now, part of the problem could have been that I neglected my garden a little bit. I was pregnant. We were remodeling the house, this current homestead, so that we could move into it. We were getting the old homestead ready to sell. And so my garden honestly did take a back seat. And so the weeding was not as top priority. And so that could have been a part of it. Part of it too could have been that every fall I would mulch my raised beds with leaf mulch that I would collect from my neighbors' properties. And I know that I probably was bringing in weed seeds when I was doing that. And so that's another factor. And so there's so many factors that could have contributed to the amount of weeds that I was dealing with last year. But I was kind of having PTSD about it, or not PTSD, but I was kind of stressing about it and thinking, how am I going to manage this garden almost solely on my own with the weeds? And thinking that, well, maybe this year the weeds won't be so bad, but if the weeds bank continues to grow and grow in the future, I don't want it to get so bad. So that's why I broke down and I purchased this landscape fabric. And I have seen so many people online have such good success with it with in-ground gardening. I thought, why couldn't it work with raised beds as well? So that's what we're doing. We're giving it a try. So you may have noticed that my dad was planting those potatoes. Originally, he was digging a hole per potato, but then he realized that he could be a little bit more efficient if he dug an entire trench and then he put the potatoes in the trench and then backfilled it that way. So that is what he did to plant out the rest of the potatoes.
I'm a little stressed because I don't know how I'm going to water them. They need a drink of water. Friends, we officially have 2 out of 20 beds planted. Here is the cauliflower and cabbage. I went ahead and we've got our snowball cauliflower that we purchased, our candied cauliflower, then we have our red cabbage that I purchased, and then I threw in a couple of our golden acre cabbages here that I started. I think instead of getting to this bed next, because we are a little bit on a time crunch, I think the more important thing is getting these onions in the ground. And I'm gonna start with the Patterson onions, and I think I'm not gonna do landscape fabric for the onions. Onions like to be meticulously weeded, but I only have that little propane burner thing right now. And the first year, I don't think these beds are gonna get too many weeds. So I think I'm just experimenting this year. So my dad's working on potatoes in this bed. I think in this bed, I'm gonna go ahead and get the onions started planting in here. and then I can fertilize on top of them. Onions, they're heavy feeders, and because there's no landscape fabric, I can plant them because they have to be planted today.
If you missed it, my dad and I went through and we put fertilizer according to that soil test that I did, what the soil needed in each one of the beds, except I didn't order enough of it. So these 5 bottom beds did not end up getting that fertilizer. My beds needed blood meal, so each bed got about 6 cups of blood meal. And the bottom row, we ran out of fertilizer and I started running low on landscape fabric. So we just decided not to put any landscape fabric on these bottom ones, and then I would be able to still fertilize them. So I get these in the ground, and I'm going to just tell you, spoiler alert, these onions 3.5 weeks later are doing just fine. I was extremely stressed about them when I first bought them, and because they had the mold on the top, I called the company and they have no idea who I am. And I just kind of explained to them what they look like, and without question, they offered to send me new ones and if I would like them. But I didn't end up needing new ones. The plants end up thriving. They look so good. They've put on new growth. The customer service rep that I spoke with on the phone, she mentioned that sometimes that happens when the package gets a little bit moist. The greens can mold, unfortunately, and die off. But onions are one of those things that actually, I don't think the mold was a optimal thing, but throughout the growing season, I am going to give these onions haircuts, and so they can handle kind of being cut back. So even though some of the greens kind of died because of the mold, the actual plant and the bulb of the plant was intact, so they bounce right back. So here is one whole bed that I'm planting out with the Patterson onions. Now, I purchased from a local farmer because my onions, I didn't get very many of them last year. I purchased, I think it was 160 pounds from an organic farmer who I have been purchasing bulk produce from. I was a member of their CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, for I think 3 or 4 years. And then at the end of the growing season, I would buy a bunch of bulk stuff from him. This is well before I had my own garden. And then I learned to can and preserve food when I was a member of their CSA before I had my own garden. And even though last year I had my own garden, I wasn't able to grow a year's worth of everything. And so I do like to be able to keep that relationship strong and be able to purchase produce from them at the end of the season. So I did buy, I think it was 160 pounds of onions, and I just ran out of red onions. I went through all the red onions I purchased, and I still have about 6 yellow onions left, and they're doing just great. Over the last, since I bought them in, I think it was the beginning of September or the end of August, I maybe have lost maybe 10 to mold, and the rest of them have been doing great. So I think that's pretty good. And if my onions don't produce well, I know that I have that relationship. I will be purchasing onions again from him. But my goal is to try to grow a year's worth, and so I'm hoping that this will be a year's worth. If you do not have a garden and you are interested in buying local and preserving when things are in season, one of my biggest tips is to start going to your local farmers market and just start talking to the growers there and building relationships. So I have built a couple relationships with some farmers that are in my area. And the awesome thing about that is that if they don't have something, they have farmer friends and they know who I need to contact in order to get the things that I don't need, or get the things that I do need. So one year, I really needed seed garlic because I didn't order it in time. If you're going to plant garlic, you need to order your seed garlic in the middle of summer. But I didn't know that because I was a new gardener. And by the time I went to go buy garlic seed, it was all sold out everywhere. And so I talked with my farmer friend, and he didn't have any seed garlic because his had gotten a virus. So the only difference between seed garlic, certified seed garlic, and garlic you get at the grocery store is seed garlic, and seed potatoes for that matter, are just potatoes or garlic that are certified not to have viruses in them that you could then, if you planted them, if they were infected in your soil, it could infect your soil. So you technically could go to the store, buy potatoes, buy garlic, plant them, and they would grow. But you are running the risk of potentially putting a virus into your soil that then could be very difficult to eradicate. And some potatoes and garlic are sprayed with inhibitors for sprouting, and so that could be something as well you could come up against. But I have planted store-bought potatoes and they have grown just fine. But that is what the difference between a seed potato and garlic is it's just certified that it does not carry any diseases that you could be putting into your soil. So I needed garlic, and my farmer friend who I purchased my onions from, he didn't have any garlic that I could plant because he didn't want me to infect my soil with the virus that he had. But he knew of someone that I could purchase it from who was another local farmer, and I was able to get garlic from that farmer who was about 20 minutes from me. And I now have been growing that garlic and saving the seed myself and planting it for the last 2.5 years, which is pretty incredible.
Friends, it's 5:30. We're calling it. We got 5 beds planted. So this bed still has some space for some onions. I was gonna push through and I was gonna plant every single onion I have tonight, and I just can't. I need to go in and shower, and I need to bring the plants in. My dad is actually up starting to bring in the plants that are frost tender. They cannot be out here overnight. I'm just giving them time to spend time outside during the day when it's sunny, but at night it gets too cold for the peppers and tomatoes and things. So he's starting to bring those in. We got red wing here. These are a storage red onion, I believe. I'm gonna have to look that up. And then we got one whole bed of Patterson onions that I know is a storage onion. This whole bed my dad got in potatoes. That whole bed my dad got in potatoes. This bed I did not get to. I will just have to do it tomorrow, which is fine. I'm actually gonna let these plants sit out here overnight. I don't have the energy or anything to do anything with them. I just need to take care of the ones that are frost tender. We got this whole bed planted out, which is fantastic because there are more tomatoes I need to up pot, and I did not want to buy any more of these. So I now can use these to up pot my tomatoes. And I am gonna bring this propane in and this glove in. So we'll bring these in so we can up pot tomorrow. Probably my dad is taking in the peppers. I'm gonna go help him. We gotta get those inside ASAP. Thanks so much for your help, Dad. There's green in the garden. That's huge.
I am so thrilled we've made it to this point where things are starting to go out into the garden. The garden is starting to have green in it. It feels like a huge accomplishment that we are here today. But before we can put any of these plants out into the garden, we need to get them back inside. So it won't be long before all these plants will be out in the garden, but it's just a process of getting to that point. This is the process of hardening off plants, where you get to bring them outside and then have to bring them back inside every day for a couple weeks while they get used to being in the elements. When you start plants inside, they can be kind of tender and you need to harden them off. It's actually good for plants to be a little bit stressed, but you don't want to stress them out too much all at once. So you just slowly get them acclimated to being in an outside environment.
We are going to get pizza tonight. There's no way I'm cooking. I'm gonna go take a quick shower. I am going to thank you so much, Dad, for your help.
Oh, we did it. We did it. It was fun.
We officially have green out in the garden. We have 5 out of the 20 beds planted.
Oh, it's just beautiful.
Wow.
Big day.
Big day. Thank you, friends, so much for being here as we got the garden planted for the first time. 2023 garden is officially started. It's pretty incredible. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. If you want to watch a couple of my other videos, I can pop them right here. Hope you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.